to call tonight's regular meeting to order. Recommendation that the regular meeting be suspended and the committee of the whole meeting be convened. Moved by Councillor Randhawa, seconded by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. I'd like to call tonight's committee of the whole meeting to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting be February 26, 2018 be adopted as circulated. Moved by Councillor Randhawa, seconded by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, as a committee of the whole, as a just informal session with council, any member of the public can come forward and speak to concerns of topic of interest to them. So if there's any members that'd like to come forward, please do so now.
I saw no notice of this, so I didn't even expect one. So I'll ask what are you going to do about the 4-year election, the mayor for 4 years? It was sort of like to me it was a one-off thing for the LNG, and so I'd like some discussion about how we're going to approach it for the next year, because to me it would probably it would limit or expand people that might want to run for mayor. They might not want to run for a full-time mayor. They might want to run for the regular mayor. I see the full-time mayor as just a one-off proposition for the LNG, paid for by Legacy, etc. So I'm sorry, I really wasn't prepared for a question. Thank you.
I can easily answer your question. So you're referring to wages. So the mayor's wage is not up to my discretion. It's a council discretion. The planning for major projects budget was passed in 2015. It sunsets at the end of this year, December 31st, 2018. And at that time, the full-time wage also sunsets. So council will have to use it at their discretion on what they believe will be moving forward, most likely after the next election.
But still, it becomes, when are we going to decide that? To me, you have to let people know who are potentially going to run for mayor. It's a full-time position. No, it's the regular as it always was before. And I would think it should be as it always was before, unless we can come up with some really extenuating circumstances.
Well, as I mentioned, it sunsets in December 31st, 2018. And that's where the discussion's at. So at the next election, the next council who moves forward, if they decide to move it beyond that, they will, and that's their discretion. But at the moment, the expectation is that this wage will go back to its part-time salary and December 31st, 2018.
Okay, that's really what I was.
Yeah.
So as far then we leave it up to the new council as opposed to. Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and by the way, I didn't see online or downstairs. I didn't see that the cow was going to take place this time.
The cow is every last meeting of the month on schedule. Okay, seeing as there's no other members of the public, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, moving on to item 2 of the regular agenda. Recommendation that the agenda for the regular council meeting of February 26, 2018 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Randhawa, seconded by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3A, recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting of February 13th, 2018 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Randhawa, seconded by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3B, recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting of February 13th, 2018 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Niche, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. First up, we have a report from our community planner regarding the application for development variance permit at 144 9th Avenue East. Welcome.
This development variance permit request at 144 9th Avenue East is for the purpose of constructing a one-story detached garage for vehicle and other storage. The application is to vary Section 5.2.4 of the Prince Rupert zoning bylaw to decrease the front yard setback from 3.6 to 2.4 meters. The proposed garage will be located at the front of the property abutting 9th Avenue East. The Prince Rupert zoning bylaw allows for the request for variances to front yard setbacks for the purpose of accommodating garages where rear and yet side yard access is not possible. Of note, the rear lane is undeveloped. Within the immediate neighborhood, there are a number of non-conforming garages. Therefore, the proposed garage is not deemed to significantly negatively impact the neighboring residences nor the form and character of the street. As well, the proposed project could provide a desirable improvement to off-street parking in this neighborhood. Staff issued notification of the proposed variance to the neighboring properties within a 50-meter radius. Since the date of this report, staff received one written comment from a neighbor approximately 3 residences to the east, voicing their opposition to the variance request. Beyond this submission, no other comments for or against nor specific concerns have been raised regarding this variance request, and you have a copy of that, and it's also available at the front for the public. Therefore, it remains the conclusion of staff that we did not receive any objections that would prevent approval of this application for variance. Do you have any questions?
Questions from council? Okay, so moved by Councilor Randhawa that the development variance permit application number DP 1801 for 144 9th Avenue East proceed for final consideration. Seconded by Councilor Moreau. Further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Oh, go ahead.
The only thing I had to say was that maybe for future, if people have opposition with something like this, that they maybe have more descriptive why they are against it. Being the letter that we received against it states nothing other than I oppose it. So to me, if you don't want something to happen like this, then maybe you need to put forward why you don't want it to happen, or come to council and talk about it. So, but other than that, I'm ready to vote on it.
Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Okay, next up, a report from our Chief Financial Officer regarding the 2018 budget presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. We are presenting the 2018 municipal budget for the City of Prince Rupert. For the benefit of the Council, the viewers in the gallery and at home, we have prepared a presentation to accompany the report to Council. The report itself is for information purposes, and it is requested that Council defer direction with respect to the 5-year financial plan and related tax rate bylaw until after public consultation and final BC assessment numbers are received. Our presentation order is as follows. We would like to take about 5 minutes to review some of our unique services and revenue challenges, which will be a recap of previous year budget presentations, given they are still very much persistent. After, we will present the budget requirements and the impact to the property taxpayers. Finally, we will outline our plans for public consultation. As mentioned in each budget season, an independent report on the capacity of the ferry service identified our airport as one of the most challenging to access in the industrialized world. We also operate the only ferry system in BC completely independent of any provincial subsidization program or BC Ferry Management. Although many of our neighbors and visitors benefit from the proximity of our airport, they only pay a user fee. Our municipal citizens pay not only a user fee when they fly out of Prince Rupert, but they also subsidize the operation through taxation. 2018 predicts a subsidization of approximately $1 million. In 2004, the province of British Columbia limited the major industrial mill rate for all municipalities with a qualifying port, export, import property. Therefore, the city can only charge a flat mill rate on industry that is considered eligible. All of the City of Prince Rupert's operating major industrial businesses qualify for the limited rates. These flat mill rates apply to properties with assessed values that depreciate, meaning they go down every year. A flat mill rate on a declining assessed value results in less taxation received by the city. In effect, there is diminishing revenue received from export-import industries yearly, and the only way to collect the same amount of industrial taxes each year would be if industry invested in their property annually, resulting in the value of the property at the very least staying the same. We have been fortunate in that DP World invested over $200 million in the Phase 2A expansion because it increased their taxable property value by $4 million. Make no mistake, though, this incentive program is not fully paid by the province. Instead, they have shared the burden with you, as described in the next 2 slides. The province in part recognized that by cutting the municipal industrial mill rate virtually in half in 2004 when the legislation was implemented would cause an enormous spike in the tax paid by residents and businesses. So they pay us the competitiveness grant as a means to offset part of the impact. This grant is only adjusted for inflation as determined by the Ministry of Finance. It does not compensate for the depreciated difference realized every year on the values of the major industrial properties.
I was wondering if you could just explain that depreciation comment?
Every single year, the value of the property, the improvements, so not the equipment, because the equipment is exempt, the properties depreciate, meaning that the value goes down from the value that was first bought at. So it is realizing the future benefit of those assets over the course of time.
So the value of that entity goes down, and we only have be able to apply the same multiplier. So if it's 2, you always only get to be 2. But if they were at 10, then next year they're at 7, and then next year they're at 5, then we get less money.
That's correct. Yes. Since 2013, the grant has increased only $53,000. Finance takes this grant into account every year before the taxation need is calculated. Here's an example of the tax cap legislation as it impacts you. Let's assume a constant 5-year annual budget shortfall of $10 million before taxes. Because the city has to balance its budget, it must bring in the $10 million every year, and so the last resort is property taxation. In our example, the residential, business, and light industrial tax classes contribute $7 million in year 1, represented by the dark blue part of the graph. The major industrial class, represented by the light blue part of the graph, contributes the other $3 million. In year 2, the city again needs to bring in taxes of $10 million, which represents no increase in need. But the industrial assessment has declined, and so with the limited rate imposed by the province, the major industrial group can only be levied $2.75 million in tax. The only other source of tax income is from the remaining tax classes, residential, business, and light industrial. Therefore, their tax bill goes up from $7 million collectively in year 1 to $7.25 million in year 2. The same deficiency continues to happen in years 3, 4, and 5 because of declining industrial assessments, and, in this example, no new investment. In our example in year 5, the other tax classes are now paying $8 million in tax, whereas in year 1 they were paying $7 million, and the industrial properties are now paying $2 million in tax, whereas in year 1 they were paying $3 million. So you can see the problem this incentive program causes when council can't set rates for all the tax classes. It essentially transfers the burden onto the other classes, and that's to maintain the same $10 million in the level of tax requirement. It doesn't take into account inflationary costs, such as wages, services, supplies, and capital increases, which would be borne entirely by the other tax classes. This is a large contributing factor behind why taxes on the residential, business, and light industrial classes in Prince Rupert continues to increase without any noticeable change in services provided. For clarity, All 4 of the industrial companies benefiting from the provincial tax caps pay the taxes the city bills. The problem is the province has placed a limit on the property tax rate the city can use to collect taxes. Council has tried for years to make the province aware of the unintended consequence of this legislation. There was hopes that the new government would bring some relief. However, it has only been a change in actors and not the story. We encourage you to write your local MLA, Jennifer Rice, insisting that this provincial incentive program be compensated in total by the province. Now on to our budget requirements. Included in the operations budget are capital works and purchases funded in part by operating revenues. The balance are funded through dividends from Legacy Inc., grants, reserves, short-term and long-term debt, and surplus. Examples of capital works and purchases included in the 2018 budget include the replacement of the Public Works building, the upgrading of the RCMP cell block, completion of Phase 1 and beginning of Phase 2 of the water project, upgrades to the aquatic center, the West Berm expansion at the landfill, and replacement of the solid waste trucks. City staff are not proposing any expansion to services for 2018. The expected increases in expense items, like contractual wage increases, increased RCMP costs, and the expiry of the interim agreement with Port Ed, meaning an increase in payment to their community by $300,000 for a total of $900,000, have been offset by new tax from expansions and new builds, as well as experience savings. Given the information known to date, staff are able to propose a balanced budget. This means no increase to the residential mill rate. We understand there is some confusion as to what the mill rate is. It is the number the city uses to calculate property taxes each year. The number represents how much you will pay per $1,000 of assessed value. For example, 1 mill is $1 per 1,000 assessed value. Given mill rates are based on assessed values, before we consider any increase or decrease to the taxes needed to be collected, we recalculate the previous year's mill rate to bring in the same amount of tax as was billed in the previous year. This slide shows that our mill rates have decreased over the past 5 years, and again for 2018. The reason this has happened is because assessed values have increased, and since we adjust the mill rate to account for this change, it means the multiplier gets reduced. To calculate the impact to a property owner of the recommended mill rate, one needs to compare the 2017 combined general property tax to the amount calculated for 2018. The 2017 combined general property tax can be found on the 2017 property tax notice as shown in the red circles. These are the only categories council can decide on. All the rest of the tax levies are either set by another authority or calculated based on assessed values in Prince Rupert to pay the bill the city has sent. The formula to calculate the general levy is on this slide. Take 2018's assessed value divided by 1,000 times the 2018 proposed mill rate. This is the municipal property tax for 2018. Compare this with the 2017 combined general property tax as found on the previous slide. This will inform you whether the taxes have gone up or down. We have provided all of the proposed mill rates on the next slide for viewers to calculate the potential impact to them, whether it be their home or their business property. These are the proposed municipal rates for 2018. I will pause here for a moment for our viewers. Here we have provided the effect to a homeowner with an average assessed value in both 2017 and 2018. The proposed mill rate to balance the budget results in no change to a residential property owner with an average assessed value home. As mentioned on a previous slide, the proposed residential mill rate is lower than last year. To show in real dollars the effect this has on a homeowner provided the value of their home stayed the same, we have created the following table. This table is in a range of dollar values where the majority of residential assessed value levels exist. For simplicity, we have separated them in $50,000 increments. For example, if a homeowner's value in 2017 was $200,000, the 2017 municipal taxes paid were $1,296. At the proposed 2018 rate, the taxes are $1,238, or $58 less than in 2017. So if a homeowner's value stayed the same between 2017 and 2018, because the mill rate is lower than it was in 2017, the homeowner can expect to pay less tax in 2018. Many home values did increase during the year, some largely and some marginally. Others stayed the same and others decreased. This is why it is important to calculate the expected value of taxes individually to determine the impact to each property owner. Just a reminder to all property owners. The tax notice lists the following under the words tax levies. The city is the agent to collect all of these taxes on behalf of all of these authorities. City Council only controls the municipal rate. This is made up of the general levy and the library levy. We do not yet know what the other levies will be. The city recognizes that property taxes are not based on means to pay. Therefore, we want to make homeowners aware of some programs that help to aid those that may qualify. The provincial government offers residents the homeowner grant and tax deferral programs. These programs are available to reduce taxes paid and defer the tax payment through a loan that is recovered at the time of sale. Please contact City Hall for details of each program or look on your property tax notice. BC Assessment will release their revised roll on March 31st, which will take into account any appeals to assessed value. It is expected that changes are likely based on the revised roll, and any reductions to assessed values may impact the proposed mill rates. Staff is planning to have 2 public consultation opportunities. Both will be held during regular council meetings here in Chambers on March 12th and March 25th. It will also be broadcast on Channel 10 and at www.princerupert.ca/live. Additionally, we will have a budget document available for readers March 2nd at City Hall, the library, and the recreation complex. This presentation will also be placed on the city's website. Thank you to Council and our community for listening. We look forward to the consultation process to be held next month.
Question from Council? Councilor Randhawa?
Thanks for your presentation. My question is related to Council Thorson. You explain how the depreciation work for the commercials, you said every year it's depreciate and so we losing the income, right? So how about their income is keep on going up, right? But we are getting less taxes, so we have no impact on that.
Property taxes are based on property values. Their property values decrease every year. That is what has been written into the rules under the Major Industrial Property Manual. And residential properties typically are affected by market. So if somebody down the street sold their property for a significant amount, that's going to drive some of the value of your own personal home. Major industrial properties don't trade frequently, therefore as far as I understand it, I'm not a valuator, the way that they value those properties has to be done on a different method. And since once they make their capital investment, there is a certain lifespan for those particular capital investments. And so the average lifespan of those properties, they take the value of it overall divided by the number of years, and that gives you the depreciated rate. As it's been communicated to me, these major industrial properties will depreciate all the way down until 20% of their value. And that's where the only time that it holds. We can only tax on property values. We can't tax on income. That is a social services tax that is provincially regulated and also federally regulated. Municipalities do not have the the ability to tax based on income, which would be means to pay, basically.
Other questions? Councillor Cunningham?
Thank you very much, Corinne. Very enlightening and whatever. But on your major industry rate, you had 53, I believe, as a mill rate. Now, that's what these major industries would be paying if they weren't capped?
Yes, currently that's where the rate sits at the moment. We haven't had a lot of assessed value sitting in that rate class because it's all been pushed over into the capped rates. So the major industrial rate is tied basically to the residential rate, just like business is tied, and so is light industry. And so there hasn't been any need for council to actually adjust that ratio just yet because there hasn't really been anything in the class.
So going back to your scale of $10 million, we could almost double the major industry tax we were collecting if you were to have a rate of at least double 22.5.
Well, hypothetically, yes, but we would only be able to collect what we need in a year because we have to balance our budget. So it is very unlikely that the rate that we would be collecting double. It would mean that there would be a reallocation amongst all of the tax classes. Likely there would be less tax on the residential, less tax on the business, and then there would be a better distribution, basically.
So the burden that we've placed on our residential and business and light industry would be evenly distributed if the caps were to be changed. That's what I'm getting at.
You're right, but it also depends on what type of tax policy that council would determine, and that comes with the ratios, basically. So if council decided that they wanted the major industrial ratio to be 3-to-1, and if our residential rate right now is sitting at 6, you want to multiply that by 3, and then that would make it 18. So it comes down to whatever you want the ratio to be tied to the residential rate. So it wouldn't be evenly distributed. It would be something that would be addressed at a policy level once you actually had the opportunity to be able to have that conversation, because the province has actually held actually 2 classes because the utility class is also capped. It really impacts the flexibility that council actually has to play with a full deck of cards, so to speak.
Councillor Morrow?
Thanks very much for your presentation. I just want to give a major shout out to city staff because in a municipality like this with significant cost pressures, I understand how difficult it is to get to this point where we can even have the discussion about not raising the mill rate on residences. So major kudos and shout out to all staff who are involved. My question is just related to the dates about when the final assessments are in, but then also how long it'll take us to incorporate into finalizing the budget as well, and if that'll be ready in time for the second community outreach or community consultation on the budget.
Both public consultations are being held in March, and the revised assessed values they're not released until the end of March. We will be seeking direction from council at the first council meeting in April, which is April 9th, I believe. After that, we plan on hopefully having the tax rate bylaw and the 5-year financial plan adopted on April 24th, which would mean that we would need to call a special meeting midway between the 9th and the 24th. For you to have 3 readings, but first we would want direction April 9th. So once we get the information from BC Assessment, we will look at it again and see if there's going to be any adjustments to our proposed mill rates.
Councillor Niche?
I just want to say thank you again for your hard work keeping this budget, more at a status quo like many years. I seen comments on Facebook the other day about snow removal. Obviously, we're going to hear those people complaining, and I just want people to understand that anytime they want the city to spend money, it's going to cost you as a taxpayer. So if you feel that snow removal is an important part, then do your part and come out to our budget consultation meetings and voice your opinion as to where the money should be spent. Every year we go through the same thing. We talk about what the constraints are from from our provincial government, and you know, we haven't been able to change that, even though there's been a change in government. Nothing seems to change. You know, it's the same problem for us every year, and that being said, it's also the same every year. Everyone wants to complain, but nobody comes out when it's important to talk about it. So if you have something that you would like to spend money on, or you think the city should be spending them on, then please come out in March to our public consultation meetings and speak there where it can be heard. Thank you.
Thanks. Further questions from council? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, recommendation that the council receive this report for information purposes and delay any direction to staff until after public consultation and final BC assessment values are released. Moved by Councillor Moreau, second by Councillor Renthawa. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And again, thank you very much to our staff. They work around the clock at budget time, particularly to make sure that all our financials are in a row. Moving on to bylaws, report from our city planner regarding zoning amendment bylaw number 3420 for a special zone at 333 11th Avenue East. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, this item was before council December 4. That's nearly 8 weeks ago, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of a flyover to refreshen our collective memories. The subject property is located in a residential neighborhood at 333 11th Avenue East. The applicant proposes to provide supportive housing for individuals who are re-entering the day-to-day life following addiction treatment. Staff developed a zone specifically for that use, which is referenced as supportive housing. The proposed bylaw will include a new definition, some special provisions, a new special care residential zone, and off-street parking requirements. That is all included in a bylaw which is attached in the attachment 1. What I have done here is I mocked up how that would fit into our zoning bylaw. So this is a consolidated for convenience only bylaw with supportive housing zone only, and the items that I will touch on are highlighted. So the first item is definitions. Probably the most important part of this exercise, and the key words are community care assisted living or governed by housing agreement. The last sentence, the typical use include, but are not limited to sober living homes, transition homes for vulnerable persons, and as we talked last meeting over the housing agreement, you know, we touched on some other examples. The general provisions include references to housing agreements. So essentially, any application will be subject to housing agreement that specifies the terms and conditions regarding eligibility, occupancy, and other provisions as set out in a local government act. Not to be operated within where there's a secondary suite, and have no indication that the building is used for a purpose other than residential use. That basically sets up a plate for a new zone, which is our single-family dwelling zone, in which we have included supportive housing. All of the setbacks and such remain as a single-family dwelling. And the last piece that's of importance is that we included parking requirements to 1 space for every 3 beds. So, the proposed use will have a housing agreement, and that is the item that follows next. Based on the present on-site parking availability, the proposed project will be able to operate 9 beds. The applicant has held community information meeting on January 18. The meeting was well attended by approximately 30 individuals, which doesn't include staff or the applicant. In general, those who were in attendance were supportive. There were a couple of councillors who attended that meeting. As well as we had some questions about what if behavior or such use creates nuisance, to which end staff refer to the housing agreement, which provides a mechanism for termination in case of any failure to comply. And in conclusion, the applicant has fulfilled the necessary obligation to proceed to public hearing, which is the recommendation.
Questions from council? Okay, so the recommendation that council gives second reading to the proposed zoning amendment bylaw number 3420, 2017, and that council schedule a public hearing for March 26, 2018, prior to the regular meeting commencing at 7 p.m. Moved by Councillor Moreau, second by Councillor Cunningham. Further discussion?
This is just on the wording. We're not holding it prior to 7 p.m. We're holding it prior to the regular meeting, which starts at 7, right?
Commencing at 7 p.m. it
Yeah,
says.
the
public hearing starts at 7 o'clock.
Okay. I just want,
Prior to the regular meeting.
prior to the regular. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't instituting something new. Just was the way the wording was there. So good.
Yeah. Okay. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. And I'm not sure if you wanted to comment on the housing agreement, or we just.
The housing agreement, the only thing that's different in the housing agreement.
Sorry.
The only thing that's different in a housing agreement is that at the first, second, and third reading at the last council meeting, the copy that was attached was in a draft. The copy that's attached now has been fully executed by the applicant and the city officials.
Great. Any further comments on the housing agreement? Okay, recommendation that council give fourth reading to the housing agreement bylaw number 3424, 2018. Moved by Councillor Moreau, second by Councillor Randhawa. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to a report from Councillor Cunningham regarding Committee of the Whole. Would you like to speak to your motion? Or would you?
Well, Councillor Moreau and I drafted this up together. We had some discussions about it and that, but I think it speaks for itself that the resolution is to bring funded societies or organizations that we fund to the Committee of the Whole to open it up for discussion. And I think it's something that we should be doing so we can give transparency to the community and let the community know what exactly is going on with these. I think it's a good start to going down that road.
Any comments from council?
I would just that's inclusive of, but not exclusive, right? Like we can ask other organizations to come as well.
I was hoping down the road to expand it to other departments and organizations. That's a discussion Mr. Moreau and I are still carrying on.
Any other discussions?
Yeah, I'll just add to that. So that's basically the main debate that Councillor Cunningham and I have had. Is I was of the opinion that that bringing including city departments in this particular motion it's a little more complicated and contentious than the fact that I think it runs the risk of us overstepping our bounds in the role of governance. So this is kind of where we came to in the sense of inviting organizations that are funded by taxpayers. That, I mean, the vast majority of them are all included in our community enhancement grant process. So, yeah, if there's any questions on the wording of the motion, just let us know.
And I'm just guessing that for the RCMP and Fire Hall, you just want them to speak generally to like the stats and the things that they've been doing, right? Not operational matters or anything like that type of thing.
Yeah, they don't have to get into any secret squirrel stuff.
Secret squirrels, yeah. Any further comments? Secret Squirrel is a JF2, or JF2 is a military, Canadian military. Anyway, Moving on. So I'll read out the motion. Whereas the City of Prince Rupert hosts Committee of the Whole meeting once a month, and whereas the Committee of the Whole is designed to deal with complex issues in greater detail and less formally than a regular council meeting, and whereas the City of Prince Rupert wishes to improve the effectiveness of Committee of the Whole, and whereas the City of Prince Rupert wishes to foster collaborative working relationships with community boards, therefore be it resolved that the City of Prince Rupert develop an invitation schedule for taxpayer-funded organizations to present at an annual progress report and discuss opportunities for enhancing civic programs and services inclusive of, but not exclusive to, the library, the airport, Leicester Centre, Museum of Northern BC, SPCA, Racket Centre, Tourism, Prince Rupert, the golf course, RCMP, and Fire Hall. Moved by Councillor Ranala, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. Okay, further discussion?
I have been hoping for all my years on council that we would get a, and maybe this is something that we could try to foster under resolutions such as this, to try to get organizations that are involved in recreation. So the curling club, the racquet club, the civic center, the golf course, all to come at the same time and explain how they are working together to try to encourage sporting activities across across the gamut of all of the services that we're supporting, to try, you know, recreation is only good if people take advantage of that, to see what kind of coordination they are making between the different groups. I've been trying to encourage that, and I would hope maybe that they could come at the same time and not only give a presentation on what their individual organizations are doing and how they're doing with recreation, but also how they are working together to for the promotion of recreation in Prince Rupert.
The invitation certainly can be sent.
That's a great idea, and bringing the recreational groups together, they can promote their programs too and get them more out to the public so people are aware what's going on, because some of the organizations are good at getting their message out and others aren't. So, and this is a great venue. It's covered by TV, paper, rock stars, and everything. So, you know, it's the message gets out better to the community than it does if a little ad in the paper once in a while.
Okay, any further comments? Nope. Oh, after? Okay. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Reports from council.
Just wanted to say condolences to Peter Witherly, because I hear on Friday evening he passed away from a short battle of cancer. He's been a big representative of the music in this community, and it'll be big shoes to fill for the next person that has to step up and do that.
Councillor Cunningham, and then...
And to add to that, one of Mr. Peter Witherly's pet projects was the music studio that is completed now, and I believe there's going to be a fundraiser for that to finish paying it off, and it was a dream of his to have that there. It's named after him, and I think it would be a great promotion for city to advertise that there's going to be a music concert.
Music concert, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ranhawa, or Councillor Moreau, then Ranhawa.
Sorry, and I also just wanted to add to those condolences that it's a major loss for the community, and I'll add just one more thing, is that in lieu of flowers, I think the family was asking for donations to the Music Society.
Yeah. Do we have any procedure to send any letters from, like, for their work for the community, or no?
I actually spoke with the family, and they told me that they will let us know if there's anything they wish council to do. Okay. So under their direction, I think that would probably be best.
Okay. Another thing, I'd like to thank all the All Native Tournament Committee organizer for hosting another very successful tournament in our community. And also, like, I saw the budget today. We have some plans for our roads, everything, but I was wondering, like, we have some potholes need to be very soon need to be get done. So if we can do, like, on 6th East and by the Hayescope, so if we can do something, please. People are really concerned about that.
I believe this paving schedule will come out after the winter season.
I'd just like to let people know that the March 11th cleanup, a lot of people have complained to me about their neighborhoods, their neighbors, different places in the community that need to be cleaned up and that. And this is a great opportunity for people to get out and help clean up their neighborhood, their yard, our town. You know, maybe the P in Prince Rupert will be pride. You know, like, let's take some pride in our neighborhood and our yards themselves. And I just want to make sure that people are aware March 11th is going to be a community effort to clean up.
And that's called the Rupert Rubbish Roundup, and you can find that on Facebook.
When we were speaking about condolences, I also add my name to condolences for Mr. Witherly, as many of us have had our children were in band all the way from I guess when they started in grade 2 all the way through to grade 12, and he was certainly one of the biggest promoters of community involvement, no matter whether it was not just band, but all of the performances, you know, for the musicals that the kids put on from high school, you know, was always, you know, Mr. Witherly and Mr. Turner, and now, of course, the new band leaders who were there. But I also want to say that, acknowledge that, and send our condolences to Larry McKay, who passed away. He was a longtime member of the school board. I don't know how many terms Larry served on the school board, maybe 8 or 9 terms on the school board, but he was always on the school board, and he passed away recently as well. And I think that for his public service to people of Prince Rupert, that also offer our condolences to his family as well.
Thank you. Okay, and I'll offer one final report. There was supposed to be a community build day for the McKay Street Park on March 4th. However, due to the weather, that's been postponed now to April 7th. So the community build day has been pushed a month in advance for the weather to improve. So not this weekend, but or when's March 4th? This weekend or next weekend? Yeah. So April 7th is the new date, and BCAA will be on hand. And there's a Facebook group for the McKay Build Park Day, so you can find that on Facebook as well. Anyways, if there's no further reports, motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Meeting's adjourned.